You're good, Andrew.
Okay. Welcome to Board of Review. It's 10 a.m., July 25th, 2024. I will call the meeting to order. First of all, I'd like to thank everybody for being here. I know we all have busy schedules, and thanks for coming in. I ask that everyone please silence their cell phones. And do you want to go ahead with roll call, Tracy?
I will. Thank you, Vice Chair Sliger. Sean Paff, the chairman, is absent with excuse. Richard Bloomquist.
Present.
Elton Krim Jr.
Present.
Carol Poole is absent. Sharif Atun is absent. Dave Carlson.
Present.
Vice Chair Andrew Slager.
Present.
Mark Fairchild is absent. And you do have a quorum.
Perfect. Moving on to agenda item 3. We will proceed to hear and deliberate 2027 Raritan Road, parcel number 0609 093 0581-7. Before we move ahead with this, I'd ask everyone to please silence their cell phones. And should we go ahead with swearing in?
Yeah.
All right.
Mr. and Mrs. Lee, can I have you raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you shall give in this matter shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
And can you state your name and address for the record, please?
My name is Quinn Lee. Address is 2774 Raritan Road, zip code 53711.
Okay.
My name is Lu Kang Shu. Address is 2774 Raritan Road, Fitchburg, WI 53711.
Thank you. And I will swear in the city assessor. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you shall give in this matter shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do. Chris Leeds, City Assessor.
Thank you.
Okay, so you two are the authorized agents or owners. So let me just read this quick. Chapter 70 of the Wisconsin State Statutes gives the assessor the presumption of correctness. The Wisconsin Supreme Court has ruled that to overcome that presumption, you need to present sworn oral testimony proving that the assessor erred in determining the total value under appeal. The Wisconsin Supreme Court has given the Board of Review standards of evidence to guide us as we consider your appeal. The standards are: the best evidence of value is a recent arm's length sale of the subject property. Next is sales of reasonably comparable property. Then all other approaches to value: income approach, income producing properties, and the cost approach on special purpose and unique properties where there is not an active market. At this time, would you please share any exhibits that you'll be reading into the record showing your property value?
Yes.
And I just want to note, if there was a recent appraisal of the property, the appraiser must be here to describe their valuation, to present sworn oral testimony for the Board of Review, but that's not true in this case. So. Okay, so Mr. Lee, you have already stated your name and full address.
Mr. Vice Chair,
Yes.
I will mark these as Objectors Exhibit A.
Yes, perfect.
Thank you.
Objectors Exhibit A. Okay, you can go ahead, Mr. Lee.
Okay. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to present the information we have. First, I need to explain a little bit about the numbers I presented today from different from the objection forms, because at that time I don't have full the information about how to present it. I just looked at the house sold this year. So the objection forms is based on the house sold this year, first quarter. And after I read the guide for property owner, Tracy sent it to me, I realized that actually it's based on the house probably sold last year. So I went back to look at internet and find the properties sold last year. So then today is based on the information I collected according to the guide for property owner. So this is the newest information. And that's a little explanation. Now let me start my presentation. Overall, everybody have a list of the documents. I present 5 documents. First document is the main documents, calculation of house value at 2774 Raritan Road. This document 2 pages. Second document is similar house sold in 2023, these 2 pages. Third document is the analysis of similar house sold in 2023, this 1 page. Document 4 is repair costs, these 6 pages. Document 5 is estimate for repairing. So let's go through starting the main documents. And when I go through the main documents, I will refer back and forth to other documents, that's supporting documents, 2 through 5. In order to do the assessment or calculation of our house, we need to search the house sold last year. And first, we need to establish a criteria based on the guide for property owner. So I established 4 criteria. Our house was built in 2076, and theoretically we should look for house built exactly that year, but actually no house built same as ours in the exact year. So then we expanded the windows from 2060 to 1960 to 1990. The house built and sold last year. This is the first criteria we established. Second, our house, what kind of type of house? You need to compare apple to apple. You cannot compare apple to orange or something else. So our house is a raised ranch. So we look for raised ranch house. Third criteria is search for house sold in the area. Is zip code 53711. And the 53711, we all know, is a long zone. And mainly divided by bear line, north and south. And if you look closer, actually, north including Tacoma community, Monroe community, and That's several communities. That house over there very expensive. So South Berlin is more compatible. The house uniform. I looked at the north of Berlin. Some of those call the price about 400 to 500 square feet, and the south more around 200 something. So then, based on the guide, I said, well, actually, our house located in the south of Berlin, we need to focus on south of Berlin. We cannot compare to those high luxury house. So that's some houses have swimming pools, some have lots of live on street waters. So that's this criteria I established. And the fourth is our house. The square footage is 2,000. I expand a little bit, 1,500 to 2,500 in this area, this size room. Fifth criteria is our bedroom is 4 bedrooms, 2.5 bathrooms. You cannot find exactly same. So I expand a little bit according to the guide. Look for house with 3 to 5 bedrooms and 2 to 4 bathrooms. And based on these criteria, I searched all the houses sold last year. I find the total 11 houses. And this listed in document 2. And if you look at these houses, all they are raised ranches, and listed the price sold, the bedrooms, bathrooms, and the square footage lot, and the locations. When was built? So all this information in document 2, and this based on the criteria established. And then we starting to analyze this data, this house, those data. We enter the data to a spreadsheet, Microsoft spreadsheet. We establish documents 3. This documents 3 lists all the houses sold and list the data sold, types of the house, address, build of the year, and the bath, the square footage, price sold. So this is based on the 5 criteria. And then we analyze this house, adding up all the square footage. What's each of those square footage? We're adding up a total. Then we're adding up those each house, how much they're sold, adding up a total. And then we use the total amount of money divided by the total square footage. This we get the average square price per square footage or rate of the house sold. So that we are getting is $201.60 per square footage. So then next, based on this, we can start to calculate our house. What's the market value if our house is really same as those houses sold, the conditions, So then we use our house, look at our house. What's our house square footage? Is 2,000. Then we use 2,000 times the rate, $201.60. We got $3,200. This is if our house is really get to the market condition, same as those house sold the condition. Okay, now the question is coming. Do my house or our house really same as those house? We all know when you want to sell your house, you want to present your house to the potential seller, good looking and walkable conditions and nice and attract them. You want to sell in good price. Nobody want to sell. I give you away. No. So that's a market. That's a market theory. So. And we looked at our house. Our house, no, it's very, actually, I looked at, checked it. It's not good condition, lots of the very poor condition. Let's look at document 4. This is document 4, total 6 pages. Let's look at the first page, item 1. The driveway. Our house's driveway, lots of cracks, damages. If you look at the 2 photos, two lengths, all cracks. If I go to buy a house, I won't buy this because you give me the deduction, how much it will be repair or replace it. So that's the driveway. Then, second page, let's look at the garage doors. You look at the garage doors, there are so many damages, cracks and dents, and this is not a up condition. And then let's look at the garage inside, the ceilings dropping, the walls, and the cracking, the 2 photos. And then let's look at the third page, the decks. The decks is original, and one is previous owners. We bought the house 8 years. When we bought it, it's already there neglect, and lots of wear and tearing. And although we take care, but still in very originally it's already poor condition, so you cannot. So that's. The decks, it's, I think, life probably ending. And the 5 items, look at the roofing. The roofing, 3 pictures, show all those, the arrows show those damages missing. And because the heels, the weathers, and the cost damages. And the third is the chimney area. All the peels, separatings. So this is not a good condition. And let's look at 4th page. That's
Mr. Lee.
Yeah.
Do you have quotes?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Yes, and I did actually each of those. I listed the price, but I will present it in an estimate from the company.
Okay.
Yes. And because time, I give me 15 minutes, so I try to minimize. Yeah. Look at the page 4. We have 2 photos show the roof. Roof normally is when they form roof like this. The roof is flat, but ours is bending, like bending. The corner is bending. I measured. It's about 4 to 5 inches dropping. So that's the buyers definitely will not satisfied. You have to repair, and the furnace where we have leakings and problems several years. So this, if we want to sell it, definitely the buyers will want to. Well, you need to repair or you need to replace new one. Then the next page is the water heater. The water heater, we have rusted and the leakages. So, and over 15 years. So the life also ending. And the kitchen cabinet is original. There's lots of wear and tear, and the hinges doesn't know working well, and there's lots of scratches. So it's not a normal condition. And then let's look at the floor. In final page of the flooring. The first floor, the upper floor is laminated floor. The lower floor is carpet. If we look, that's lots of scratch missing. The surface, I think lots of you have laminated floors. If the laminate getting certain ages or wearing, the surface is very thin, just, I don't know, 5 to 20 microinches, very thin. So starting peeling. Lots of areas that I show, and we have lots of pictures. I cannot show all of them. And also, that's holes and the carpet wearing, bowing, and damages. So this, in order to get the market value, we have to replace. So this is then the final, the document 5 is the repairing cost estimated. The company called Budget Remodeling LLC. They estimated. We know all those companies that give you estimate that and below, because they said later on when we do real work, we'll do adjustment because we don't know when open up what's inside. So they said this is minimum. So I use this estimate. Then let's go to we start in the document 1. That's item 5, step 5. The true house value of house. In order to get the actual value, we use the nominal market value. We calculate in step 3. That's $3,200. Subject the estimated repair cost. Then that's $59,000. Then we end up at $344,200. This is a little higher than I presented in the September 17 meeting. July 17th, the board meeting. That's because at that time I used this year's number and I used 2 stories. And after I do research, I realized our house is raised range. You cannot use 2 stories house. So that's my calculation. I did do some research on the internet. That's one internet company. They claim they are accurate. They estimate very accurate. That's called Redfin. Of course, there are other Zillows, Realtors. They try to pop up the price. They are very high. But Redfin.com, they claim they are most accurate estimate. They estimate our price is $334,729. This morning I checked because there are fluctuation. This close, my calculation a little higher than them. So I'm very comfortable. I spend quite a lot of time, over probably 50 hours to do all this, because I promise you guys I want to do good jobs and do accurate jobs.
That's a lot of work.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So on your objection form, your opinion of the assessed value was $320,848.
Right. That time I based on first quarter of this year, and at that time I'm not so clear about what house ours. I thought that 2 stories actually is a raised range, so they are different. That's I focus raised range, and based on the guide for property owner, we should look for last year 2023 houses sold. So that's 2 different. One is the types of house different, another is time windows different. So that's why the price they are different.
So your current statement of value, you think, is $344,200.
Yes, based on the information I collected.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to open it up to questions that any other board members may have.
I guess, this is Krim. I just was wondering, I wasn't clear on who the repair estimates were coming from exactly.
The company called Budget Remodeling LLC. Last page.
Oh, budget remodeling, okay.
Right. Actually, we have them remodeled our bathroom. How many years ago? 10 years ago? Or 8 years ago? For our home? Yeah, for our home. The bathroom. That give us pretty good price. So.
Dave Carlson with a question for you, sir. Some of the photos that you submitted on your document for are, in my opinion, more convincing than others. About the roof and the condition of your shingles, can you just tell me how old the shingles are? What was the last time you roofed it?
I did not check the record. I just, we bought it in 2015. I think 2015. So we bought it 9 years. We did not replace it. I'm pretty sure there are more problem, at least 15, maybe 20 years.
And how old is the water heater that you say is giving you problems?
The water heater? Water heater, definitely more than 10 years because we bought it 9 years. When we bought it, it's already, we saw rusty, but it did not leak.
And last question on a slightly different note. Tell me why again you cited tell me why you believe Redfin is a more accurate measure of more accurate source for a realistic evaluation of your house's value than other websites.
Okay, that's two reasons. One is they claimed, they openly claimed we are the most accurate estimate the house sold and the house price. Second is actually I did prepare or compare the house sold in the market and the price they listed. They are pretty close, and not like Zillows or Realtors. There are big difference.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Morning. This is Blomquist. Question for Chris. Chris, when you did your valuation at 376.4, did you do a walkthrough of the property, or did you do an inspection, or is this just like neighborhood averages and that you came out with the number?
I will get to that, but to answer you now, we didn't do an inspection this year, but we did back in 2020, at which point a lot of the wear and tear was noted, and there were some changes made as a result of that. So I'll get into more of that here shortly, but.
Okay.
Okay, I think if that's it for our questions, we will go ahead and let Chris present his case.
Can I ask a couple questions as well? Or at least I got one question. Is that
Yeah,
square?
go ahead.
Okay. So I guess the question I have primarily, so you presented a number of comparables here. Do you know if any of the other houses that were presented here as comparables have any similar deferred maintenance to your property?
I roughly look at those pictures on the internet. They are looking much nicer than our house.
Okay.
And some the interiors pictures.
Sure.
And also the roofs. If you look at our roof, you go around and you can see the roof dripping.
Sure.
About 4 to 5 inches from the two ends, if you look carefully. And also, definitely the driveway is, you can very obvious. So even from this, the photos I took from internet, those driveways much better than us. not like we have
Sure.
cracks. And also the garage doors, you see, those garage doors, very flat and nice.
Okay. Let's see here. So then I guess a follow-up to that. Were there any, did you make any adjustments to those sales to, kind of compare them, on an apples-to-apples basis? You know what I mean? So like for adjustments for condition or age or square footage or anything like that to make them?
Those houses sold at the price?
Sure, yeah.
No, not really. Because I have no numbers
Sure.
to estimate how much price will be adjusted. I just assume
Sure.
there are if we want to sell our house, definitely we'll repair all this because I read it's a good return. First of all, you obstruct a lot of potential buyers. When the more buyers, you say market rule is competition.
Sure.
The price will go up, so that's definitely is a good reward for repairing.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, I don't have any more questions.
Thank you.
All right, so do you want me to?
Yeah, go ahead. And,
Sounds good.
You have packets to pass out, I think.
I do. Andrew will hand them out here in a second here.
Vice Chair Slicker, I will mark these as Assessor's Exhibit A.
All right, thank you. My name is Chris Leitz. I'm the city assessor here for the city of Fitchburg. We've provided the board and objector with written information on the assessment that I'll go over here. On the first page, section 1, the first page is the objector's objection form as submitted last week. Second page is going to be a summary document that kind of details some of my educational and professional background. As I mentioned, my name is Chris Leitz. I'm employed with the City of Fitchburg Assessing Department as the City Assessor. I have an Assessor 2 certification which expires on May 31st, 2028, and an Assessor 3 certification which expires on January 31st, 2025. I'm current with all required continuing education. I've worked in the assessment field now for over 8 years. I've been with the City of Fitchburg since January 2023 as the assessor. I have worked prior to that for 6.5 years for the City of Janesville Assessor's Office, where I was employed initially as a property appraiser from June 2016 to 2019, a property appraiser 2 from 2019 to 2021, and then most recently as the deputy city assessor from 21 until I was onboarded here in January of 2023. While I was there, I was heavily responsible for valuing residential, commercial, agriculture, and personal property. In the appeals process, I was heavily involved in open book, board of review, and post-board of review appeals in circuit court. I have the following educational experience prior to being an assessor. I have a Bachelor of Arts in Urban Suburban Geography from UW-Whitewater with a certification in GIS and a minor in philosophy. I currently serve on the Legislative Committee of the Wisconsin Association of Assessing Officers. I've attended a number of Wisconsin Association of Assessing Officers quarterly meetings, classes, trainings. I've attended a number of classes by the International Association of Assessing Officers, ranging from residential and commercial valuation and modeling to assessment administration. I have attended each annual assessor meeting presented by the Department of Revenue since 2016 when I started in the field, and I've attended board of review training in 2017 and in 2021. Section 2 of that document states that the purpose of the assessment and standards for establishing value. The purpose is to estimate the full value, often referred to as market value, of the property as of January 1st, 2024. Part A outlines the standards for establishing value. State Statute 7032 summarizes the standards for establishing value as found in State Statute 7032, the Wisconsin Property Assessment Manual, and case law. The valuation hierarchy is Tier 1, an arm's length sale of the subject if that sale is consistent with the characteristics of arm's length sales of reasonably comparable properties, or Tier 2, based based on comparison of properly adjusted arm's length sales of reasonably comparable properties, or Tier 3, all other accepted techniques, primarily the cost and income approaches to value. Part B contains the definition of market value, including criteria that a sale must satisfy to be considered arm's length and used for establishing true market value. Part C is information from the Wisconsin Property Assessment Manual that specifies that mass appraisal is the underlying principles that Wisconsin assessors should be using to value properties in their respective jurisdictions, that the purpose of mass appraisal is the equitable and efficient appraisal of all property in a jurisdiction for ad valorem tax purposes. It defines mass appraisal as the systematic appraisal of groups of properties as of a given date using standardized procedures and statistical testing. And the manual notes that although similar to single property appraisal or fee appraisals, there are notable differences between the two. And finally, because this is a revaluation year, the estimated level of assessment is approximately 100%. On the next page, you'll find a map illustrating the subject property's location. The next few pages following that are the property record card that contains specific data on quantitative and qualitative physical characteristics of the land and improvements for the subject site. To note some of the more significant data, the first page shows the property is a single-family bi-level home. It's located in the Wildwood neighborhood on the city's central northwest side. The second page shows building permit history and sales history. You'll note that there's no recent arm's length sale of the subject property, and the current property owner purchased the property back in 2015 for $151,000, and the sale was not considered arm's length at the time. There's no detached structures here. The notes section shows that the property was last inspected in November of 2020, at which point the interior condition of the property was downgraded to fair due to wear and tear on the interior of the home. There was a 2024 open book appointment. No change was made to the property value during open book because the issues raised by the property owner were already being accounted for with the interior rating of fair. The home was built in 1972 and has typical depreciation for a home built 52 years ago that has not been updated. Following the notes is the land information on the property. On the third page of the record card, you'll see that the structure is a bi-level style residence, 1 story in height. It contains 2,203 square feet of living space, was built in 1972, and is a construction and quality grade C+ property. The overall condition, desirability, and usefulness is rated as average. There is other detailed information on the physical attributes contained in that same record card. The back page and the fourth page is the sketch of the property. The next few pages of the the next page of the document is the market valuation detail, which summarizes the assessment calculation that's completed by our automatic valuation model. The model is based on Volume 2 of the Wisconsin Property Assessment Manual in 2022 and 2023 arm's length sales. The next page in the document is a map that locates the subject and reasonably comparable properties, arm's length sales, sorry. The next page is a sales comparison report that shows those comparable properties and their adjustments. The report lists comparable arm's length sales from 2022 to 2023. The addresses of the sales properties are 5808 Ledgemont Court, 5733 Restall Street, and 5727 Frusher Lane. The sale dates range from June 2022 to December 2023, and the sales prices range from $375,000 up to $430,000. That report shows photos and lists comparative data that demonstrates that the sale properties are reasonably comparable to the subject. They're all bi-level homes. The subject and sales comparables gross living areas range between 1,934 and 2,458 square feet. The effective year built ranges are from 1970 to 1980. Other data is listed demonstrating that the sales properties are, again, reasonably comparable to the subject property and have been appropriately adjusted for differences. The differences that they adjust for is going to be stuff like building attributes, age, condition, market location, detached structures if there are any. And those adjusted sales prices range from $348,100 up to $402,900. The adjusted sales prices of those reasonably comparable properties indicate that the current assessed value of $376,400 is a fair estimate of the market value of the subject property as of January 1st, 2024. I should note that the assessment, per the Department of Revenue, assessment compliance is within 90 to 110% of market value. The stated value, as mentioned previously, was $344,200. Our current assessment of $376,400 is 109% of their opinion of market value, which would indicate that more or less we're in compliance with our assessment here. In summary, there's not a Tier 1 arm's length sale of the subject property. We completed a mass appraisal assessment of the property using both Tier 2 and Tier 3 approaches to value. We've reconciled to the Tier 3 market modified cost approach, as that provides the most uniform, consistent, and detailed value estimate as expected by the taxpayers. Based on the testimony provided today, I do not believe that the property owner has overcome the presumption that the assessment is correct, and respectfully request that you sustain the assessment as presented. Thank you for the time. I'm happy to entertain any questions anybody might have. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Are there any questions for Chris right away?
Bloomquist, question for Chris. When you show your net adjustments on page 1 of 2, just for clarification, if you look at the one for 5733 Restall and you showed negative 27,000, if I flip to the back page and I add page 2, if I add those up, that's how you get to your adjustments?
Yeah, should be.
Thank you.
Could I ask the questions?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. First of all, according to the guide for property owners, the assessment is based on the sales previous year, not 2022. That's 2 years ago. These two should be disqualified based on the information I understand. Second is from statistic view, only one house left is really cannot say something. That's a sample size. If you want to comparable, that's as I know here, minimum probably we need 8 houses, similar to compare, because from mathematics view or statistic view, one house could be very high, and or 2 could be very low. So they have minimum requirements for statistics to compare. So here only one house, 2023. So there's no meaning from math view.
What was the question?
Well, actually, it's not a question. I just
You're just
my comments based on what my reading the guide for the property owner, and they present the information. This is kind of, we cannot get any conclusion from this information. First of all, the 2022 is house sold is not based on the article or statute said previous year. Second is from statistic view, only one house left 2023. This cannot tell you so much for the market trend. Now, let me tell you a little of my background. I'm a professor.
I think.
Yeah, right.
I think we have to.
I used to do research in UW, so that's why you see I do lots of comparison research.
Yeah.
So that's what from my background, I tell you what's the meaning.
Okay, I think we have to wrap it up. Did you have any final statements, Mr. Leeds?
No, nothing further.
Okay. Are there any other questions from the board?
I have a procedural question for Chris, or for those who have more experience here on the board. Is it fair to think that it would make any difference? Is it fair for us to ask you to consider doing a comparison with some of the properties that Mr. Lee included in in his comparison?
Well, let me look at, see what he presented here quick. But I will say, while we were kind of talking, I plugged in, the most comparable sales, took out the two from 2022 that were in question and replaced them with the kind of next runner-ups that were in 2023. And it generates a comparable value up to, where is it here? $404,600. So and this is kind of very typical of the market in general, it increased substantially from 22 to 23. So I think if anything, using sales from 2022 probably drives the value down, if anything. Adding more sales from 2023 would drive it up as we've seen here. So nevertheless, at least one of them, I think, let me look at the grid here. Most of these look like they're from, okay. The ones that I used are not in here, in the sales grid, that were considered the most comparable. The next two that I used were 2810 Marlage and 5780 Lacey Road. So again, it's not, they're not the exact ones, but I think the story would remain the same. And some of these, actually quite a few of them are outside of the city of Fitchburg, so we just don't have those in our system, simply. So.
Yeah, would your explanation to Mr. Lee of why even a revised comparison that you would do is not going to have the results that he might hope for, that the market, as you say, is likely to have gone up, that his comparison includes some properties that just you can't include because they're not in the city of Fitchburg?
Right. I mean, theoretically, we could do that. It would take some amount of time to add all that,
okay. But then also that your comparison does take into account, I think as you described it a while ago, maintenance issues on some of the comparables.
It does.
Although in my way of thinking, including that would tend to yield an assessed value for the Raritan property that's lower than if maintenance issues on the others had not been included. Am I thinking correctly?
I think I see what you're saying. Yes. So what happens is if these properties that are in the comp grid, it adjusts for conditions. So what we've done in this case is adjust the subject property down based on some of the wear and tear that we saw. If these comparable properties that we used had similar issues, their assessments would be lower. Or if let me look.
Well,
so you can see here, if you look on the back side of this comparable grid, if you look at the interior rating of the property, all of those are at average as compared to fair. So if you were to bump his up, it would change the numbers quite a bit. So hope that helps.
Okay, I think we've heard both sides and we're done with our questions. Now's the time for us to deliberate. Does anyone have any thoughts or want to do a motion?
Could you, Chris, remind us, if you described such things, I've forgotten them. Did you have meetings with Mr. Lee or during open book? Have any adjustments been made already to the assessed value that you might have initially proposed?
Yeah, so overall, we did meet with Mr. Lee during open book, and he provided us a lot of the information that's before you at the time. And, based on what we saw, a lot of what you see here is, average condition for a, almost 50-year-old house. So that's where that CDU, that condition, desirability, and usefulness factor comes into play. If it had more atypical, like more depreciation and, quality issues that are kind of beyond what you'd see as typical in a 50-year-old house, and we would make that adjustment. So that's why we did for the interior. We thought that the interior, and this was back in 2020, and I don't think that it's gotten any, based on my review, I wouldn't have made any change. And based on the information presented here, I think the assessment is correct, so.
Yes, we are through with presentations, but since you got a question after, I'll allow it. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yes. 2020, after the open book, because my schedule is very busy, I looked at the letter from city of Fitchburg. It said the value went up so much. Then I called the city. I say, hey, I cannot accept it. It went up so much. I think at that time is what's his name? John or somebody is similar to you. Face.
Anybody who
Yeah.
you met with in 2020 isn't here now.
Yeah, he come. The gentleman come to our house and looked at. He said, "Well, I did not come. I don't know the physical condition. Next year I will adjust." I said, "Okay, next year adjust." And then next year forgot. Everybody forgot. He went up again. So that's why 2001, 2002, 2003, now 2004, every year goes up. This year go up more than 20%. I said, what's going on? Why? So that's why I said this year, regardless how busy, I have to do some work because otherwise just we want to pay fair tax, not unfair tax. Mm-hmm. I'm not mind pay the cities, but I need to pay fair.
Okay. Well, thank you for preparing your packet here, and I think we've heard from both sides, and we are ready to make a decision. Are there any other comments from the board? Any motions?
I, Carlson, move that we sustain the assessment department's assessment of the property 2774 Raritan, legal description 060909305817.
Slager seconds.
Can you read the dollar amount into the record too, please?
The dollar amount of that assessed value being $376,400.
And you second that?
Slager seconds. Any more discussion, or should we go ahead and move to the vote? Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? No one else? Okay, so the city assessment, the city assessor's value is upheld. We'll give.
Thank you, Vice Chair Slager. I will present the determination forms to the objector, which will give him information to appeal if he does not agree with the board's decision today.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Lee.
Thank you. So what's the decision now? I didn't catch.
We voted with the city's assessment of your property, the city valuation, because he had already, well, he stated his case, and he was already taking into the condition of your property in his valuation. So, but there are other avenues for you to proceed if you still don't agree with the valuation. Well, do we need a 5-minute break, or should we proceed to the item agenda 4? Okay, I think everybody's good. Let's move ahead to item agenda 4. Consideration of dismissal of objection form for 2939 South Fish Hatchery Road, parcel 0609091839-0 due to incomplete information. I believe that is the Summit Credit Union.
Thank you, Vice Chair. That is correct. And the agent is here present in chambers with us.
So we are, when we first looked at this objection form, it was not complete because the objector was going to provide documents to the assessor. Chris, did that happen?
No, it did not. I guess, I don't know, should we swear in, I guess?
Oh, yeah, I guess we should swear in.
Thank you, Vice Chair. I'm going to swear in both parties, just in case there's any questions asked of the agent and or the assessor, or in between. So we'll start with you. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you shall give in this matter shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And can you state your name and address for the record, please?
Gary Kohlenberg, 345 River Bluff Circle, Oconomowoc, Wisconsin, 53066.
And you are the agent for said property at 2939 South Fish Hatchery Road, parcel number 0609091839-0?
Correct.
Thank you. And do you solemnly swear that the testimony you shall give in this matter shall be the whole truth, shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do. Chris Leeds, City Assessor for the City of Fitchburg.
Thank you.
Okay, perfect. So, resuming our discussion.
Yeah. So, I guess there's a couple issues that were raised both by myself and by the board here. Primarily, I guess there's two issues. So, State Statute 7047, subsection 7, subsection AE, as well as Rule 7 in the Board of Review's Adopted Rules and Procedures Manual, indicate the requirement to specify the information that the person used to arrive at that value estimate. And that often means attaching additional sheets, as you'll see on the objection form. In the objection form that was submitted, under the basis for your opinion of assessed value, it says, supporting documentation to follow under separate cover. Concurrent with this objection, we are providing the basis to the assessor alone for confidentiality purposes, and that information was not provided with the objection form within the first 2 hours of the Board of Review meeting last week on the 17th. Based on that, since there was no addition, that information for the basis of assessment was not submitted with the objection form, we believe the form is incomplete. Additionally, the other concern that was brought up was several references to Mount Horeb as the city on the intent document that was dated Sunday, July 14th, 2024. It says, "Dear Municipal Clerk, please acknowledge in writing receipt of the attached notice of intent to file an objection form for real property assessment regarding tax ID 06090918039-0 located 2939 South Fish Hatchery Road in Mount Horeb." Additionally, the objection form also references, in this case, both Mount Horeb and Fitchburg as the city. I guess the question would go to the board: is this document of intent to file considered valid, and then therefore would the objection form that would follow be acceptable or not? So that's our opinion. I've spoken with legal counsel, and they share the same belief. So, anyways.
Okay, any questions? Mr. Kohlenberg, welcome. Do you have any statements on the form?
I do.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, the first thing I'd like to do is address the board. Thank you for allowing me to be here this morning. I'd like to give you a brief background on my credentials, and then I'd like to address the matters at hand, the one that was raised this morning, as well as the one that was raised last week. My name is Gary Kohlenberg. I am a Level 2 assessor certified by the State of Wisconsin Department of Revenue. Educational background, bachelor's in finance, master's in accounting, master's international business. I've been a commercial real estate broker for over 40 years. I'm a certified public accountant, former elected official. I'm very familiar with the process. I'm very familiar with the forms, and I'm very familiar with the form review process, which is the primary crux of my argument before the board. I will address the specifics that were raised. We'll start out with the one that was raised this morning, the intent form. So it is true that the intent form read Mount Horeb. Don't know where it came from. However, the Board of Review is charged with two very important components. One is to use judgment, and the other is to be impartial. The intent form is not required. It's supplementary. If I send an intent form, or if I don't, it makes no difference. The intent form is to notify the Board of Review that I intend on appearing, and I have to submit that at least 48 hours before the Board of Review hearing's first meeting. However, if I submit nothing except the objection form, there is no reason to supply an intent form. So, although it read Mount Horeb, it has no significance because it is not a necessary document to appear before the Board of Review. My recommendation, it should be completely disregarded. It's not just my opinion, it's state law. There is no requirement to submit an intent to file, only an objection form 48 hours in advance. I'd like to read a statement that I have prepared regarding the bigger issue. Although I am here to explain my position regarding the objection form submitted, more importantly, I am here with a bigger mission, and that is to help the Board of Review on assessment practices. I've been a certified assessor for over 15 years. I know the law, I understand the manual, I understand case law. I doubt any member on this board has served on any other Board of Review or even seen a Board of Review hearing other than Fitchburg's. I have participated and witnessed in hundreds of hearings, most recently 9:30 this morning in the city of Madison. I'm very familiar with the process and the law. The City of Fitchburg Board of Review has been misled regarding the document review process to kick out property appeals based on a form. This practice of document review is unique and only exists in a few municipalities. The four largest cities in the state of Wisconsin are Milwaukee, Madison, Green Bay, and Kenosha. The City of Milwaukee Assessment Department has over 30 assessors, appraisers, support staff, and legal team dedicated to assessments. They hold Board of Review meetings several times a month, all year long. They have no document review sessions. The City of Madison, where I was this morning, has no document review sessions. The City of Green Bay has no document review sessions. The City of Kenosha has no document review sessions. I have appeared before all of these municipalities over the past 15 years. The fact is, each of these municipal assessment departments is more sophisticated than the City of Fitchburg. They have more resources, more lawyers, and more assessors. Which municipalities conduct document reviews? Simple answer. Cities that are the client of Amy Seibel. Why don't other municipalities do document reviews? The more sophisticated assessment departments and boards of review in the largest cities in the state recognize there is no substance or basis for a document review session. What do large property owners do when they are denied by this board the right to have their assessment objection heard? They hire expensive law firms that file lawsuits against the city and have the Fitchburg Board of Review decision overturned. Why do the courts overturn the board's decision to not hear a case? Because the board erred in their denial to hear the objector's case. What happens when a small property owner, just as we had seen earlier today, is denied a Board of Review hearing during Fitchburg document review process? They fold up their tent and they go away, and the board advises them to try again next year. They can't afford a $600 per hour attorney to represent them on a $450,000 house that was overassessed by $50,000. As you are aware, my clients are often very large corporations that can appeal this board's decision. To put it in perspective, the assessment I am addressing today is by, I believe, the largest credit union in the state. 2 years ago, we came before the Board of Review, and I had presented over $250 million of assessment appeals. We sued the city of Fitchburg. My clients are very large. They can afford this. Why am I fighting for the little guy? Because the board has been misled, and it is my duty to inform you about the facts so your board can make better informed decisions. In Chapter 21 of the Wisconsin Property Assessment Manual, under Legal Decisions and Attorney General Opinions, there are only a handful of cases cited denying the petitioner the right to be heard by the Board of Review regarding completeness of Form PA 115A, Objection to Real Property Assessment. In Bidders versus Newbold from 1971, the court ruled the objection must be on an approved form. It's in the manual. They're right in their decision. Use the right form. They didn't, and they got kicked, and they were correctly kicked out. The next one, Reese versus Board of Review, Town of Erin, 1965. In this case, the taxpayer had filled out answers to all the questions on the form. However, in their answer to the question, what is the present fair market value of the property? The objecting taxpayer wrote, I do not know. The court says, even if it were considered that the board had accepted the answers to the other questions, the answer remained insufficient. Surely, the single most important fact relevant to an assessment is the fair market value of the property, and a taxpayer who desires to proceed with an objection in good faith must be prepared to take a position as to what the fair market value is. He got kicked. He didn't give an opinion of value. The courts have ruled if the address is wrong, the tax ID is wrong, the property owner's name is wrong, just about anything can be wrong, missing or inaccurate. The courts will allow the appeal to advance through circuit court. I'm going to shoot myself in the foot right now by telling you the truth. The board is not better versed in property tax law than the tax courts. Hearing property tax appeals is what they do all year long. This board meets a few hours a year and receives, at most, superficial training. My suggestion, listen to the courts, not the assessor or the assessor's attorney. There are two key cases why a board should not hear an appeal based on the form. Number one, did the objector use the approved form? And number two, did the objector provide an opinion of value? I did both. The entire document review process is fundamentally flawed, which is why tossing Fitchburg taxpayers out for incompleteness or inaccuracy is overruled by the courts. The practice does not help the city of Fitchburg, and it hurts the property owners. I'm going to ask two rhetorical questions. Board members, if an assessment appeal is denied, does it increase the city of Fitchburg tax revenues? Answer: it has no impact in the tax revenues that the city generates. This sounds counterintuitive, but it's true. You are not helping the city. Instead, you are hurting your property owners by denying them their due process and granting them a hearing. Question 2. State law reads, the assessor is presumed correct, right? That is not the law. The manual reads, Chapter 21, page 33, without evidence to show that an assessment is incorrect, the assessor's opinion of value is presumed correct. In other words, the assessor is presumed correct absent evidence to the contrary. If the assessor is presumed correct, we don't need a board of review. All you got to do is rubber stamp what the assessor says. The assessor is presumed correct absent information to the contrary. There is a significant difference between what the assessor likes to cite and what the manual states. I am bringing this to your attention because I believe the board has been misled and misdirected. I am here to present an opposing viewpoint. There is no basis for denying a hearing if a form is incomplete or inaccurate except in 2 instances. Did the objector provide an opinion of value, and did the objector use the approved form? Let's review other inaccuracies and incompleteness of the other form I filed. PA 105, Agent Authorization. A close examination of the form I filed will reveal the following. Under tax district, I wrote City of Fitchburg, but I didn't check the box for city, village, or town. The form is incomplete. I didn't check a box. Under street address of the property, I didn't include a zip code. The form is incomplete. The fax number for the property owner was not filled in. The form is incomplete. According to your document review process, you could have thrown out the appeal for any of these reasons. A missing fax number. Think about that. Denying a property owner due process because the fax number was not included. If you're going to be consistent, you should throw out every appeal that is missing a fax number if a fax number exists. And if a fax number does not exist, to be complete, the form should read, no fax number exists. Of course, this is absurd. Most importantly, to allow the objector to advance and to allow a missing fax number to slide, but denying an appeal for missing a check mark in a checkbox makes your process arbitrary and capricious. This is where judgment comes in. The Board of Review is required to be impartial. In fact, the document review process is anything but impartial. It is following the lead of the assessor and his attorney, which is not supported by any case law or the manual. I am asking the board to follow case law, not the advice of the assessor's attorney. I am asking the board to discontinue the practice of tossing assessment appeals based on whether a box is checked, a zip code is missing, or a fax number does not appear. I am asking the board to be truly impartial and use good judgment, and most importantly, follow the law. At the last Board of Review hearing, you were misinformed by the assessor. I reviewed the videotape. Chris stated, and I quote, "The form says something to the effect, we'll provide information to the assessor directly, and that they have not done that, and presumably when you file your objection form, you are supposed to attach the information that you are using to plead your case, essentially, and that was not provided to me. Attorney Seibel said the objector within the first 2 hours must submit the information, and they did not, so based on her recommendation, I agree with her that we should allow the objector or their agent to state their case as to why they didn't provide that timely." This is all nonsense. It's not what my form said. My form did not say I would provide information to the assessor. Furthermore, there is nothing in the form, the manual, or case law that states when I must supply the information. Certainly not within the first 2 hours of the first meeting. There is nothing in the form, the manual, or the case law that requires the objector to plead their case using a form. Pleading the case is done before the Board of Review during the hearing, not in a form. Chris continues by stating, they didn't provide the information they said they would. The operative thing here is with that form, they're supposed to indicate why the assessed value is incorrect, why you feel that way, and your defense for specific value as evidence, and that would be part of filling out the complete form, and that was not provided to us. Again, this is completely fabricated by the assessor. There is nothing on the form, the manual, or case law that supports Chris's statement. It is misleading and inaccurate and does not follow assessment law. The issue Chris contends is that the form is incomplete. This is not true. I answered the questions. I filled out the form. The answer I gave states supporting documentation to follow under separate cover. Of the hundreds of objections that I have filed throughout the state of Wisconsin and in the city of Fitchburg as recently as last year, my response, exactly the same, was acceptable. However, this week, the city of Fitchburg, under the direction of Amy Seibel, it is considered incomplete. What changed? The assessor has provided nothing to support his case from either case law or Wisconsin Property Assessment Manual. In closing, I urge the board to accept my objection without change other than a revised document where I have crossed out the name Mount Horeb on the objection form. I will give that to you if you like. There should be no question where I am, what property I'm objecting to, what city I'm in front of. The fact that it said Mount Horeb in addition to Fitchburg, who knows? A computer error. I take full responsibility. Undoubtedly, there is no question which board I am in front of. This is where good judgment and unbiased consideration should prevail. If the city wants additional information, I have brought along a document I sent to Chris months ago supporting the value. He has the documents. He's always had the documents. However, those documents will be updated when I present my case at the hearing. It is not required to be presented, but if it assists the board in making an informed decision, I will provide it now. More importantly, I request the board from the city of Fitchburg to do away with the document review process, which is little more than searching for throughout a government form for a missing check mark, a transpose number, or a typographical error as rationale to deny property owners, especially small property owners, a right to have their case heard by an impartial body and is willing to hear the facts of the case rather than dismissing an objection for purposes of serving the assessor. By the way, earlier Chris stated State Statute 70.477AE, and in his email to me explaining his rationale, he cited it. It reads, when appearing before the board, it doesn't talk about a form. It reads, when appearing before the board, the person shall specify in writing the person's estimate of value of the land and the improvements that are subject to the person's objection and specify the objection the person used, the information the objection uses to establish an opinion of value. What he quoted you as a reason to bump me doesn't talk about the form. I'd be happy to answer any questions from the board. I'd be happy to give you my objection form with a 1-inch line crossing out Mount Horeb. And if you want to see the information that I gave Chris months ago, I have it right here.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kohlenberg. I don't think we were too worried about the Mount Horeb statement on there. The objection form must contain an opinion of value, which is more than just a conclusion of value, and it must provide supporting documentation to satisfy the requirements of State Statute 70.47 AE. This objection form shall specify the information that the objector used to arrive at their estimate of market value of the property. This statute is satisfied if the objector adequately completes Section 3 of the objection form, including attached additional sheets of information. This section is satisfied only if the objector states with specificity the reasons why the objector believes the assessment is too high and identifies and or attaches the information that the objector used in support of their opinion of value. Simply stating the assessment exceeds the market value without additional information is insufficient.
Thank you, Vice Chair.
That is according to the rules and
Yep,
procedures.
that's the rules and procedures that was adopted by this board on June 5th.
Which rules and procedures? Where did that come from?
That came from the meeting on June 5th, first meeting of the Board of Review to adjourn. And you were sent a copy of that as well.
I see.
So
And
as-
what
as-
is the deadline to submit? In the rules and procedures that you just read, does it say before presentation to the board?
I believe it's the first 2 hours of the first meeting.
I didn't hear that in the rule. You just read it.
Let's see. Well, there are more rules. I don't know them all off the top of my head.
I'll find it for you if you want to talk. Ask Chris.
Okay.
Go, Chris.
So I think we're not worried that it said Mount Horeb on your form. Your form said that you're going to meet with Chris to discuss confidential information in regards to that assessment or into that land valuation. Chris, those were not satisfied, correct? That meeting was not satisfied?
No, Gary did send me information back in open book, certainly, but that as part of the objection, in his objection, it's not my responsibility to provide his documentation to you for the board. It's the objector's responsibility to provide the basis for their assessment. In this case, his form directly says, supporting documentation to follow under separate cover, concurrent with his objection, we are providing the basis to the assessor alone for confidentiality purposes. And that was not supplied to me. So,
The key question is when? When is it required to be presented? And as I stated, last year, and I understand that you adopted some new rule, and so I was made aware of the rule after the first meeting, correct? After you kicked it. So this is the first time I'm hearing of the rule, and it calls into question whether or not the city of Fitchburg can make up their own rules which supersede state of Wisconsin state statute. I think with all due respect, you can't make up rules that make it more difficult for a property owner to appeal an assessment that exceeds the authority of the state of Wisconsin. You can't do that. And even though you have a rule and you passed it, it has no teeth. You could make up any rule and say, we're not going to hear anybody unless they show up on a Tuesday. You can't do that. I did comply. If you want more information, I will supply it. There's no rule to put it in within the first 2 hours. I have the information right here. I'll give it to you. Doesn't mean much. I'm going to change it when I go to the Board of Review. I mean, obviously, the information that I gave Chris, that didn't work for him. He says, this isn't good enough. What am I going to do? Resubmit the same information? I'll give you new information. So if I give you this document, and if I gave it to you 2 hours before the Board of Review, and it's meaningless, does that make my case any stronger, other than I complied with a silly rule? It doesn't.
Well, the issue is we can't, the board has already started for the year and we're not able to change our rules and procedures at this time. So we have to move forward with what we have.
I understand. And that's where judgment and impartiality comes into place. Think about this. I was here last year, there was no rule, and this year you just made up a rule. It should be heard. It's good judgment. More importantly, this entire document review process should be done away with.
Okay. I think we've heard from both sides. Let's go ahead and move forward with deliberation. Does anyone have any further questions or?
Bloomquist, question for Chris. I'm confused. I'm thoroughly confused because the gentleman has told us that he submitted his rationale for why he wanted some semblance of confidentiality. So do you have his justification for taking the assessed valuation from 2.7 down to 2.3 and change in both cases? And if so, when did you get it?
So there's a few things here. I got information from Gary, an open book, and it was not convincing enough, in my opinion, to change the value. The objection form requires that you supply your evidence as to how you arrived at your value conclusion. The board is a completely separate body from me. I was not given anything, and the operative language here is concurrent with this objection, supporting documentation to follow under separate cover, indicating that there would be further evidence. By Gary's own admission, he said he's going to come up with some different stuff if he appears before the Board of Review. So the implication is that there's more to tell here, that there's a different opinion of value, that there's more documentation. The basis for his assessed value, or his opinion of assessed value, was not provided with the form. The form requires you to supply a basis for your opinion of assessed value. There was no basis for the assessed value provided to me with this form. There were several other attorneys and law firms that filled out objections with almost the same exact language, and they did supply their basis for their assessed value. So presumably, Amy Seibel, attorney, expert in law, a number of other law firms, presumably also experts in law, they knew well enough to apply or to supply the information based on the form.
So basically, we're being asked today to uphold the dismissal because of one box in Section 3.
Yeah, in the past, this board has dismissed forms on a number of, or I guess I think it's 3 apartment properties, because they referenced files that the assessor had, and again, it's not our responsibility to provide the board with information speaking to the objector's case. That's their information to garner that necessary information and supply it to the board.
I understand open records, and I understand what goes into these documents are somewhat open records, okay, are, can be justified. I'm somewhat disappointed that if the documentation that you had or the assessor's office had, not you specifically, never found its way to the board. Whether or not the assessor's office says, I had no responsibility to send it on to you, quite frankly, in my opinion, it would have been nice to have it. I view this as a valid objection. Summit, through their agent, wants a hearing. And quite frankly, I'm going to vote no to dismiss it and let them have their day in court, so to speak. I really don't give, I grant what Vice Chair said about Mount Horeb, I just figured that Word doc or cut and replace is a wonderful thing some days. So I don't think any of us bothered because we all knew the parcel number. At least I wasn't too concerned. I thought, oh, great. You know. So, you know, I'm going to vote no on this thing and let them come back. Then we can see the documentation we have. And you cite a whole lot of case law. You know, I'm not an attorney. You know, and so I take that, but I'm doing this mostly because, you know, it can come back. And the board can see what has been submitted, and somewhere between, you know, whether or not we agree and the justification, that I want to see. So that's how I'm going to vote.
Tracy, go ahead.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Just for the record, and this is not an opinion, I am not a voting member. I just wanted to read into the record the top portion of the objection to real property assessment, the PA 115-A form. It says, to file an appeal on your property assessment, you must provide the Board of Review clerk written or oral notice of your intent under state law, section 70.47, paragraph 7, paragraph A of the Wisconsin Stats. You must also complete this entire form and submit it to your municipal clerk to review the best evidence of property value. See the Wisconsin Department's Revenues Guide for Property Owners. Complete all sections.
Were there any other questions up here? One last statement, Mr. Kohlenberg, keep it brief, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Last week, the assessor's own words were, I should be pleading my case with a form. That's just incorrect. It is misleading. I did submit a complete form. I am going to submit supporting documents. There is no rule, and I challenge the assessor to find one, that states I need to submit the documents with the form. It is to my client's disadvantage. I will be brief. Once I say, here's all the information I'm going to submit, what do you think the assessor's going to do? They're going to go through, look up everything, do their best to discredit it. What do I get before I walk into the Board of Review? Nothing. I walk in blind. He has my entire case and uses that to discredit me. It's not impartial. I don't have to plead my case on a one-page form. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Leeds, go ahead.
Just one question. You had mentioned earlier that, well, I'll just ask the question. Do you have any experience litigating cases in circuit court?
I don't think the assessor can ask me questions. Not at this hearing.
Okay,
fair
enough. Let's go ahead and can finish our deliberation. Can we get a motion and a second or any other comments from the board?
Yeah, I suppose we need a motion so that our discussion of relevant matters can be focused. So I will move that, Carlson will move that, let me just turn to our agenda. I'll move that the objection form for 2939 South Fish Hatchery Road be dismissed due to, as it says here, incomplete information. That being the objection related to property parcel 060909180390.
Bloomquist will second it for purposes of discussion only.
Yeah, I'd like to comment on the unfortunate absence of others with more experience on the board than I. But in listening to the agent for this property, I'm struck by the fact that we have two very different decisions to make. One, it seems to me, is whether we have it is the assessor's testimony that the information for coming up with a different basis for assessment has not been provided with this objection, i.e. with the objection form, with the filing of the objection form. Argument has been made that it should not have to be submitted with the objection form, but it says that something was going to be submitted that hasn't been submitted with the form. And for that reason, I think we would be treating this case the way we've treated other cases if we dismiss it. As to the larger question about changing our procedures, I'll hold off on making comment. I have some thoughts on that, but I don't know whether we wish to discuss that now or not.
Yeah, this is Krim. At the very top of the form, it says, to file an appeal on your property assessment, you must provide the Board of Review, BOR clerk, written or oral notice of your intent under state law, numbers. You must also complete this entire form and submit it to your municipal clerk. To provide the best evidence of property value, see the Wisconsin Department of Revenue's Guide for Property Owners. And on the form itself, in the box where we should have had something about the objections, usually there's a number there. We have just concurrent with this objection, we're providing the basis to the assessor alone for confidentiality purposes. In the statement that he just made, he doesn't want to give the information to the assessor because then the assessor will basically be able to address all of the issues made at the time that he gives him this information ahead of the hearing. But I think the issue is that the information needed to be provided to us, not necessarily that had to be provided to him, according to what's at the top of the form. So for those reasons, I would vote yes to not proceeding with this form.
Did you have any final comments, Bloomquist?
I'm going to vote no. I think the objection form, I think he's due a hearing. I have a feeling no matter what this board does, it's going to go to the next step. If we don't hear the hearing, he'll do what he's going to, they're going to do what they're going to do. So but like you, I have some questions about the procedures, and I think we need to iron those things out. But I'll vote no.
Okay, I'm of the opinion that we need to follow the rules as is right now. So I will be voting yes. Let's go ahead
Do a roll call.
and vote on it.
Want to do a roll call?
Yeah, let's do a roll call.
Before we make the vote, could I address one or two questions to the objector, to Gary? Asking permission for the chair of the chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just so I understand for possible discussion among ourselves or in another context what you mean. I was struck more than I had been by some of your earlier arguments that providing the information, providing the basis to the assessor at the time you file the objection form gives the assessor's office an unfair advantage when it comes time for the hearing, is a point that seems at odds with the way you worded your response to that second question, as it were, in Section 3, where you said that you are providing the basis to the assessor alone for confidentiality purposes, which initially I took to mean you didn't want to tell us because you didn't want, you thought we would fail to be impartial. You only wanted to give it to the assessor. So could you explain what you meant by what you put in that second box in Section 3?
Thank you for your question. Great question. There are financial statements provided often and requested by the city assessor on almost every commercial real estate property. And the rules state that if you're going to use the income approach, the property owner needs to submit the financial statements, I think it's 7 days before the first Board of Review hearing. The assessor is bound by confidentiality. He cannot share that information. Not quite. He can share that information. He can share that information if he is subpoenaed or if he is court-ordered to release it. And so I did give information to the assessor, and I can't remember if it included financial. It's more of a standard language that I use. As soon as I give it to the Board of Review, it becomes public record. And that's what this is talking about. And so I don't like to supply information to the Board of Review unless I absolutely have to. Oftentimes, the assessor's office, and it happened at Fitchburg 2 years ago, where a resolution was found in the middle of the hearing. The assessor ran over and said, hey, will you sign this stipulation and we'll get the whole thing wrapped up. And so weird things happen. A lot of weird things happen at the City of Fitchburg Board of Review. It's weird. I mean, unusual things. So that's what I meant. The assessor is not bound by confidentiality, but for the most part, he is. But the board is not, and everything I submit becomes public record. If you were a property owner, you wouldn't want your financial statements out for everybody to see.
Understood. But when you wrote concurrent with this objection, did you intend that to mean that concurrent with the filing of this objection form?
It means that they already received the information. So maybe concurrent
so
wasn't
that somewhere, yeah.
Maybe concurrent isn't the best word. I mean, sometimes I'll supply information to the assessor alone prior to the Board of Review hearing.
Okay. Thank you for your answer.
Yes, and if I just may add one last sentence. I understand the board is going to vote against me. I I recognize that, and I appreciate your consideration and for your volunteerism. However, I am grateful that the board will take a really close look at this procedure and the rule that you passed, which supersedes Wisconsin state rules and statutes. Thank you.
I'll comment, Vice Chair, that we've not been given any compelling argument that our rules supersede in the sense of violating state law. The objector had stated, the agent had stated at one point that a state law reads, when presenting an objection to the board, someone must do such and such. That is not equivalent to saying that no municipality or its board of review can stipulate that further someone, well, I'm lost in the syntax of my sentence. Let me start over. The state statute that he was reading does not imply that a municipality doesn't have the authority to require the presentation of that information earlier. The state law would prevent that only if the state law said no municipality shall require the objector to present the information sooner than at the hearing. I just wish it to be on the record that the objector's last statement is challenged.
Okay, thank you.
Can I call the question?
Go ahead.
Call the question.
Yep. So we will do roll call on the motion. Call the question means he's asking for a vote.
Okay.
Richard Bloomquist?
No.
Elton Krim Jr.?
Yes.
Dave Carlson?
Yes.
Andrew Slager?
Yes.
For the record, the motion is carried to dismiss the approval of accepting the objection form. Motion
Thank you,
carried.
members of the board.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kohlenberg. Okay, moving on to item agenda 5, consider act on scheduling additional board of review dates. Tracy, what do we have?
Thank you, Vice Chair. Everything on today's agenda has been completed, so we do not need to act on scheduling additional Board of Review dates. Our next meeting date is already scheduled for August 20th. I believe that was determined at the previous meeting at 8:30 a.m.
Tracy, or Chair, I do have the subpoenas that were approved by the board at the last meeting, if you'd like to sign them.
Yes,
I have
sure.
several copies if you'd all like to take a look. I should say all of them minus 2, or 1, technically.
Okay, so item agenda 6, next meeting date, Tracy just mentioned that. And,
I probably will not be at the August 20th meeting.
okay.
I probably also will not be at August 20th.
And I think we are good to, what is it, suspend? No, not suspend. It's not adjourn yet, is it?
Nope, not adjourn. Postpone.
Postpone.
Correct.
So let's postpone until our next meeting, August 20th. And thank you, everybody, for watching and listening.
And for the record, we are adjourned at 11:50.